Hey guys, Beefcake here. We are here in Kansas City, or technically Lenexa, where ATI Procharger is. About 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago, I bought a brand new 2025 Corvette. Procharger had not done a calibration on the 25 yet, so they needed a test mule. So I bought a car about 3 hours from here, had it shipped here, had about 1 mile on it. Procharger, they had to put 500 miles on it just so the full power opens up on the cars like they do on the Corvette. The kit is installed, it's tuned, a little bit new mapping they said on the 2025, so it took them a little bit longer, but we're excited. We got about a 10-hour drive home. We're going to go in, we're going to do a tour, check out the facility, talk to Walt, all the guys at Procharger. This is our first time here in Kansas City. Mahomes' face is everywhere, man. But I'm a Bengals fan, obviously. Tampa second, but we'll let the Chiefs have their thing. So anyway, we're going to go in, check this facility out, see what they can show us.
Well, to kind of get started, I'll give you kind of the normal tour that we would do for
Okay.
a regular beta customer. So,
Okay.
thanks Terry for coming,
All
showing
right.
up, and up here, this is our
This is Walt.
obviously our main. This is our main facility. This is pretty much where all tech sales is. This is where customer service is located. We do all of our graphic design stuff here, all the uh, website updates and everything else pretty much happens here. We do all the manufacturing for the superchargers, all tube bending, making the tubes, making the intercoolers, pretty much all that stuff. You'll see a little bit of variety of everything when it comes to
Okay.
comes to the tour. But as you know, Procharger started in '94. Company quickly grew. We were the first to offer intercooling on supercharged applications. So based on that performance and the amount of boost that we could run and how much power those cars made back in the day, obviously the company grew fast. There wasn't really anybody doing it at the time.
Yeah.
Within just a handful of years, the company was out of the garage and into like an industrial strip center where they had rented a building, and then as the company grew, they'd rent another one. But sometimes the third one was occupied, so then they'd rent the fourth one, and eventually they just took up that whole place. But you know, fast forward to '99, and that's when this building was built, the main portion of this building. And then a year later, it was added on to where we had a machine shop and R&D area. Since then, we've added the Innovative building next door, which houses all our industrial builds, engineering, and so on for wastewater treatment plants, aircraft ground support, things like that. And then additionally, we have our R&D building across the street over there, which is where your car is at. That's where we do all the development work, installs for beta customers, verifying kits and tuning and so on. We have our second dyno over there and so on. So that's pretty much what happens
They all rear
over
wheel
there.
drive, or do you have an all wheel drive too? Or
We have two rear wheel drive dynos.
okay.
Anytime we do all wheel drive dyno, we have a partner that we work with for that. Most of the vehicles either are we can turn it out of that, or we can do something with the drive line to make it only two wheel drive. Some of the new stuff that's really been tricky is the E-Ray Corvettes, where they're all wheel drive, with the battery power in the front and the gas power in the back. Those only go on all-wheel drive dynos, so that's what we do.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a big deal for us though, because those kits make nearly 900 horsepower on a stock car between battery power and what we can add to the supercharger. So
Nice.
yeah, they're really fun.
And what did the C8s pick up? The regular C8s?
C8 stage 2 kit, like what you have, typically will be about a 230, 235 horsepower crank gain over stock, which is pretty significant on the stock car LT with the boost level that we do. But on your car actually picked up close to 200 wheel, so
Okay.
that's considerably more than 230 crank.
Nice.
So definitely made good power.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Oh,
you'll enjoy it, that's for sure.
oh yeah.
All right, so up in this area, like I mentioned, this is kind of primarily our customer service, tech, and sales area.
Okay.
We're one of the few companies that you'll actually get somebody on the phone. So when you call up and say, "Hey, I have a question about a kit," whether it's a dealer or customer, whatever,
Yeah.
customer service is going to answer that phone call and then kind of help you get to the right
They're
department.
real consistent with the questions. It's always, who are you? What are you looking for? Do you have a kit already, or do you need help with a kit? So it's kind of 4 questions always.
Yep,
Like,
exactly. Well, and then the type, what it is, because we do so many different things like racing, motorcycle, marine, automotive. They could be. There's different cues for different things that you might.
yeah, I know we talked about Harley kits over the years.
Yeah.
Never got there because that last one I had ended up being water cooled, and I know
Yeah.
you guys didn't really have anything for that, but
Yeah. But yeah, so after it goes to customer service, then they're going to route it to who they might need to go to. So if it's a customer calling up and says, "Hey, I've already got a Procharger kit and I want to take my P1SC to a D1SC," well, then they would send them over to tech and they'll kind of go through that process. Or let's say it's a customer that calls up and says, hey, I've got a question about CA Corvettes. I don't have one yet, but I really want to know what it's about. Then they'll send it over to sales guys. The nice part is that tech and sales are so intertwined that you might be taking a tech phone call, but your next one might be a sales phone call, or vice versa. So our sales departments aren't the, slick salespeople who are just trying to talk something into it.
Yeah.
We're going to try to go over the whole program, make sure that they have exactly what they need. You guys know from all the
Oh
questions
yeah.
we ask back,
Yeah.
hey, are you sure this is what you want?
Yeah, we try to
You
get
got
the
the
website
systems?
with like, what year is it? Is it auto? Is it a manual? Does it performance pack?
Yeah,
Does it,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. So there's a lot to it, and because the kits are all built to order and nothing's on the shelf, we want to make sure that even with short build times, that we have all the information necessary so that the customer is getting exactly what he wants. We don't want that customer calling back saying, "Oh, well, I thought I was getting that, or I wanted to do this," and then you're stuck in the middle because,
Right.
well,
Well, and I
nobody's
know
told
we've
you.
had some applications over the years where, it's just, we do late model muscle mostly, but then you get some people that they get crazy combos. And occasionally my salespeople will not ask all the questions. And I like it, me, when I
Yeah,
get involved
sure.
in it, I get you on the phone and even try to get the customer on the phone.
Yeah,
So you're all on the same page
yeah,
from the start, because nobody wants to be shipping, because those kits are big. You got hundreds of dollars of parts and configured and
yeah,
stuff. So let's get it figured out the first time and
yeah.
make sure
Well,
you're
and
getting exactly what you need.
sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So sometimes the customer doesn't even know what information he needs to give you. We don't know what questions we need to ask until we find out more about what it is.
Yeah.
And you guys definitely don't know because I would say not definitely don't know, but in cases like that where if we don't know and the customer doesn't know, we're all trying to figure it out together.
Right.
So
Right.
for you to be able to give the best service possible, we need to give you the best service
Yeah.
possible. So that's all part of it. But again, that's the nice thing about our tech guys and as well as sales is because the tech guys aren't just flipping through a manual saying, "Hey, the manual says this." The tech guys and sales guys both they are part of the development team when it comes to doing beta installs. So the same guy that you might get on the phone probably did your kit or whatever. So
Yeah.
if the customer or the dealer calls up and says, "Hey, I'm having a little trouble figuring out how this bracket, which way it goes,"
Yeah.
one of these techs can be like, "Oh yeah, I did one of those last month, and this is what I had to do to make it happen."
Yeah.
So they'll
Well, and I do like your guide. So you're, as far as a dealer guide, you guys have probably the most comprehensive guide, because
Mhm.
for, every application, then you have footnotes at the bottom, with your A1, A2, A3, and must need this. And so,
Yeah,
my sales guys, I've always instructed them every single kit, look at the notes, see if there's anything you need to ask or what we
yeah,
need to find out,
sure,
in addition to the basic manual
yeah,
auto. And I know that's in some of the stuff, but it's like, let's figure out what we need. Hey, do they need to buy a balance, or do they
hmm,
need to buy an
sure,
unlock? Is there something? Because nothing like getting a kit, you didn't realize, oh, I needed to buy a
no,
balancer to go with this. Now I got to spend $700 and you didn't tell me. So
yeah,
if you give them all the information up front, it makes it a lot nicer.
sure,
And so your guides are definitely the most
yeah.
comprehensive.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and it makes it tricky, which sometimes some people want it dumbed down, but we try to put as much information in there as possible so that it doesn't have to generate. It's not a useful use of anyone's time if you're having to make 5, 6 phone calls trying to
Yeah.
figure out exactly what you need. Plus, like you said, when a guy's got a budget and he's working within that budget, and then you shock him with all this other stuff, that's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure it's
Okay.
all in there. But anyway, so that's kind of what happens up here. Customer services on this side, techs on this side, and then sales mostly wraps around the outside of it, which also helps give better service because, if somebody says, "Hey, I was just talking to Terry." Yep, I just had them. You send them on over. We're not some other part of the building where
Yeah.
we can't get a hold of them real quick and figure out what's needed. Uh, or if somebody was dealing with an issue or whatever, it's a lot
Yeah.
easier for us to take care of that. So anyway, that's kind of what happens up here. Um, Upstairs in that area up there, that's primarily like uh, where our web stuff goes on, where all the graphic design stuff, all our social media, all that stuff that we do in house. That's where mainly that happens. Upstairs is also accounting, inventory control, things like that. There's a lot to do. When we walk out here, you'll see a bunch of different parts and part numbers. So a lot going on. This is where all the any component orders that you guys might do, or just head unit only orders, they're going to be packaged up back here. Um, all of the superchargers, as I mentioned before, they're all built to order, but they're not. And they're all serialized, so the serial number that's on the stamped on the supercharger is going to correlate with a specific sales order. So we don't actually start building this blower until you order it. So if you call me up today and you say, "Hey, I need an F1A94 kit for my Corvette or whatever,"
Yeah.
we're going to start building that supercharger once it's ordered. Typically, lead times are going to be in the 3 to 5 day range, depending on what it is. Some kits a little bit longer. since '94, we've never stopped making a kit we've ever made. So
Yeah.
we can actually still do all the oil fed blowers if you really, really want one.
Yeah.
And some kits, that's the way they come.
Well, I've seen like some of the exhaust companies, like, I won't name names, but they've had exhaust they discontinue. It's like, well, and customers are still looking for it. And I understand you don't sell a lot. And I guess it gets tricky in production from a production standpoint, working in them, one offs or different size tubing. But,
Yep.
That's the one thing I do say about you guys, man. When a new car comes out, there's a kit for it, pretty doggone quick. Well, even if there's no tuning, you got a kit made that fits up and it bolts and it works,
Well, that's the idea, to try to stay on top of it. I mean, obviously the newer cars are getting tricky, but that's also the reason why we keep the old stuff around, is because we want to keep the old cars going too. If you call us up and you say you've got a 94, 95 Mustang, don't expect your kit in 3 to 5 days, but we're still going to be able to make you a kit, or
you just got to get it worked into that production schedule. And
that's why some of that stuff is special order. It takes a little bit more time, but we still do it. So, I mean, me personally, over the years, I became a Procharger customer in '96. I had a P600B on my '89 LX.
Yeah.
And over the years, between having them on bikes, cars, and everything else, I've had 17 Fox bodies. I still got a Gen 1 Lightning. I built a '85 Capri. So that's what I do. So I look forward when I see one of those old school Fox body kits. I'm like, ooh, I remember those.
Yeah.
But how things have changed, because back then the install manual said good luck. Now it's basically
it gives you a good breakdown,
all the tools and bolts and everything. But anyway, so continuing on, obviously that's the polish finish unit. This would be like an F series in satin finish, P or D series in that satin finish, and then obviously black. We have some black models up here. But as I mentioned, these are all ready to go in a box. So these are blowers that are sold. That serial number is the birth certificate. So if a customer calls up and says, hey,
and then call up 3 years later and say, hey, I bought this kit, here's my serial number, and every part that was on it, right?
We'll be able to pull up that original sales order and tell them exactly what pulley size it has, when it was built, how it was spec'd. So if the customer said, hey, it had long tubes and a cam, and the new owner was like, I have no idea what's on the car, at least we'll have some information based on what they had. But in addition to that, that is, like I mentioned, that's the birth certificate. So not only do we know when it was built, we know who built it. When the impeller was made, we know pretty much everything about it, and any service history. So if it ever been back, let's say a guy called up and says, hey, I bought this blower, off marketplace, and I need the rest of the stuff to go with it. Give us the serial number. We'll be able to tell you, does it fit?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't fit, based on the initial sale, had it ever come back for a modification at some point anyway that maybe make it that it could fit?
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll know all the detail about that.
Nice.
That's basically how that looks. Going over here to kit packing, this is some of the kits in varying different stages of assembly. So these are ones that obviously are already getting ready to packed up. So this one's going to be making somebody's day when it arrives.
Yeah.
That's how it'll look. This is one in the stage of going together. This is a C7 Corvette kit.
Nice.
One thing about a C7 Corvette and our kits in general is that for the majority of our kits, we make these so that if a customer ever sells a car, needs it to go back to stock for whatever reason, they can be able to do that. So we use in some of the panels that would need trimmed in order to install the kit, we send them already pre-trimmed. So the customer can pull their stuff off, set them aside, and then they would have new stuff to be able to put on. But these kits, we use what's called bagged assemblies. So for instance, this would be anything that starts with a 3 would be a bagged assembly. So this is the crank pulley bag. It's going to have all the crank bolts in there. If it has a pin kit, if it has a crank pulley and the special hardware, it'll all be in that one bag, which makes it nice, because if the customer ever says, hey, I bought this used kit and I'm missing some hardware, we'll be actually pull up the bill of material for just that bag.
Yeah.
And have all the part numbers that they need to be able to do it. But anyway, so when they're packing a new kit, they're going to have a pick ticket. They're going to go through the person will initial it, scan in the part. That's going to reconcile to that order and say, okay, yeah, I have the right part in there.
I tell you, I've been racing 25 years, but I've been selling. We started Beefcake racing in 2011. I think we got on with you guys 13 or 14 maybe. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, over the years, like people calling me and saying, hey, I'm missing a part. Mm-hmm. It's very, very rare. I mean, it actually is for the amount of kits that we sell and we've sold over the years, I think I can maybe count 1, maybe 2 people that have ever called me in 10 plus years and said, hey, I was missing this bolt or I was missing this out of a Procharger kit, which is pretty impressive.
Sure. Well, we also do random audits on the kits. So sometimes once they're all packaged up like this, in annoyance to the shipping guys, quality will come and pull one, cut it all open, cut every bag open, go through every piece and part and make sure that bill of material matches what it's supposed to be. So that's also something we do to help that quality,
Yeah.
because the guys know that there's some repercussions to if they slipped up and missed a couple pieces, somebody's going to find out about it, and it's not going to be good. But at the end of the day, we're trying to provide the best service.
Right.
You know, and
Well, because most guys, when they're installing, it's like, okay, it's Friday night.
Yep.
Let's take it
Just
down
on
for the weekend.
Mhm.
Saturday, you're halfway through the install. I'm missing a part, and it's like
like that.
there's nobody you're getting a hold of till the earliest you're getting a part is Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know, and especially some of these guys are daily drivers, and they're
They
trying to
can't be
knock
done.
it out in a weekend. You know, so
Well, and that's part of the reason. So once we get all this done and we get it done, we actually take photos of everything that's in the kit. So once the photo is shot, then they'll do the packing material and get it sent out. And the reason why that's important is, again, about that good service. A lot of times customers, when they open one of these kits, I'll be the first to admit, when I bought my first kit in 96, I bought it out of classified ads. So that dates me a little bit.
yeah,
But I've said Supercharger, Intercooler. Oh, it must be a complete kit. Well, it wasn't.
yeah,
So in this particular case, what we're trying to do is make sure that they have everything in there. So if a customer does call up and say, hey, I'm missing something, we know that the first thing they went to was a Supercharger and Intercooler. They might not have noticed that when we took, let's say, this bag, and to try to fit space, it might have been tucked beside a piece of foam in the box, and they couldn't see it when they pulled
Yeah.
out their blower. Hey, you know, I show that in the photo. I would suggest going back to your packing material. 'Cause
you do
it might
photos
have
as
been-
well on a
we
lot
do
of stuff.
photos.
Yeah,
We do photos on every kit.
Yeah.
So if you call us with a serial number, we can pull up that sales order number and it'll have a picture attached to that box.
For Innovations, we do a ton of fuel systems with those guys. They do the same thing. And that's what I knew they did that. And we started doing it with everything that ships from us. We take a picture of everything.
Yep.
I had, and even dealers, I had one of my dealers, hey, I didn't get my lug nuts and my wheels. I said, I see a picture of them here. He went out to the dumpster. It's in there. He called me 2 weeks later, was missing something else. I said, it shows in the picture. Went back, his
Yep.
2 weeks in a row, his guys threw stuff out. He's like, and there was something was missing from him like a third time. He says, I just want to call you so you can tell me, but it was something that that was drop shipped on a transmission that just never came. It was actually a converter, and they had never got it. And they went back and looked. It was a year-old order, and the converter company just never built it and shipped it, and they got that taken care of. But anything that ships from us, we take pictures of. Customers like, well, I didn't get that. And you're like, well, I see a picture of the belt right there. So,
Well, and a lot of times that's part of it, you know, and it helps us too, because if the customer says, well, I swear I didn't get it, and we don't see it in the photo, well, they get one.
Yeah.
You know, because it's really cut and dry. You know, there's
well,
no
and you get
thing.
some guys or man, they open it up and they set out home, and then it sits there for 3 months till they get in at the shop,
Yeah.
and it's like, you know,
By that time, 5 people have touched it, and yeah.
I had a guy bought a different brand Supercharger, July of 23, and the shop he's at now is sending me pictures of a balancer from a different company saying it came with that kit. I'm like, this company has absolutely nothing to do with that company. I said, is there a chance ATI shipped this company a balancer? It was the wrong part number. They saw it, let it go by. Then it had to go back out, went out again without them saying. I said, I guess it's a possibility, but you know, you're talking, you know, 20 or like 20 months later. I said, there's nothing we can do at that point. Obviously, we want to help customers, but this thing's been sitting around for a year and 8 months. It's like, you know, maybe you had another car. It's not even the same model car. It's not even close. So, you know.
Yeah, it definitely didn't come with your kit, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, that's kind of how it goes with the kits and how they go together. So yeah, definitely photos helps. Upstairs is where a lot more of the inventory lives, but we also do a lot of that assembly work upstairs. So when we're putting bag assemblies together, they actually will take the prints of the part, pull them all, make sure that they got the right thing, and put all that stuff together. And then when they're packing a kit, it'll tell them, hey, this is on shelf 110. A rack or whatever, and they'll be able to go up right to it.
It's funny. It seems like these Wrangler kits are getting more pop. You don't think as a Wrangler as a, hey, let's go put a super, because you know I'm on the drag racing side more than anything. You like, what are you going to do with the Jeep? But you know, maybe they get out dirt race. I don't know. What do they do with these?
Well, you know what? I've got a good friend of mine that's in eastern Ohio, almost on the close to West Virginia, actually. But anyway, the Jeeps were never something I got into. I didn't really know much about them. And he sent us a Jeep to be one of our betas, and we put it on the dyno. It made about 200 wheel horsepower.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
what a turd.
I haven't had something that made only 200 wheel horsepower, and I can't even tell you how long. Then we put the kit on, and it picked up about 100 wheel horsepower. And you're like, man, you know, still only 300 horsepower. But when you think you started with 200,
you
added
50% output is pretty nice.
That's it. You don't. It's much smaller numbers than we're normally used to dealing with, but
it feels like a lot for that guy.
For a Jeep customer, it is what the doctor ordered, and most times they'll say, this is how it should have been when I bought it.
Yeah.
You know, so we're just helping them enjoy their vehicle even that much more.
Wheel and tires. Yeah, bigger wheels and tires, because that sucks up a ton of power.
Bigger wheels and tires for sure. And the other part is, this when you do that and you add weight, it definitely will hurt one. And if you haven't re-geared it, then that becomes an even bigger problem because, you don't want to be getting smashed trying to get on an on-ramp, on the highway. So, an extra 100 horsepower will definitely help that out. So a lot of the intercooler stuff, you can kind of see them through the cage. The intercoolers are one things that we do build up kind of ahead of schedule. We kind of know what our average sales of most things are. So we'll prep a lot of the intercoolers up front because we do all that welding in-house.
Yeah.
Welding is super labor intensive with all the intake manifolds we make, intercoolers, all the tubing. So we do prep some of those intercoolers up front to get them ready so that it speeds up that lead time.
Yeah.
The superchargers we don't want sitting around, but some of the components, not necessarily a bad thing to have a little bit of inventory.
But you've got all the components for the superchargers. That's why they go together so quick.
Yep, exactly. So metal polish happenings in there. So some of the
so you do all the polishing in-house too?
We don't do the final show polish finish anymore. We used to, but regulations got pretty difficult for that sort of stuff. So we now ship that out.
What about powder coating?
Powder coating we do locally. And then same with castings. We've got a couple places we work with locally to do castings and whatnot. But all of the metal prep. So when we make a tube, sometimes we do mandrel bend some of our own tubes, but some tubes are so complicated that in a mandrel bender it's still quite difficult. So we will weld up a tube. It might have several sections in it. It might have airflow straighteners. So these particular tubes don't, but let's say we took a section of mandrel and we welded it together, then we'll clean up all those welds to make sure when it goes out to powder coat, it's in a good spot. But some will have math bungs, some will have airflow straighteners.
Yeah.
So we make all that stuff and prep it, so when it goes out, it looks like a good final finished product.
Nice.
So as I mentioned, a lot of the stuff, that we make in-house, the
I was
standard.
going to say that looks like a Corvette part.
It is. So these are some air water intake manifolds for the LT for the Corvette stuff. This would be the low profile kit that would either go on a C8 hardtop convertible, or if somebody chose a low profile kit for the coupe. But these are also similar parts to our new standalone air water intake manifold we're making for the LS and LT engines that we're spreading. So the new stuff that you saw at SEMA and PRI, this is a version of that. So for crate engine guys, let's say I bought an LT from GM and I want to put an air water intake manifold on it, real tight packaging, you can actually buy a complete manifold ready to go, including a kit, brackets, tube, the whole thing ready to go in. So other than tubing it.
It seems like that's good, Mark. I know on the Coyote, MMR makes the air water intake manifold. They're the only one though, so I don't know if there's market there for that, but.
So that's an intake manifold like would be on your car, all raw before it's actually powder coated, assembled, polished, whatever it might be.
So that's the intake that's on the C8?
That's the intake that's on the C8 coupe. So that's kind of how that would look. If you see, this is all Honda welded stuff done in-house. So we make all the billet runners, all of the attachment points. We fab up all the tubes. This would be a regular air-to-air intake manifold for like a LT1 or LT4. So if you imagine a C7 Z06, they pull off the factory supercharger and they'll put on one of our intake manifolds. We also offer these with port ejector bungs and fuel rails. So if somebody really wants to turn it up, they can do that.
Well, it's funny because some of the guys, they ask, why is the C8 kit so much? But I can't imagine with that billet manifold.
Yeah.
Like if you just buy a billet manifold, I see a lot of manifolds run $5,000 to $8,000 for. Yep. We sell a lot of the plasma mans, and they're $3,500, $3,700 for just a basic manifold that's probably half that size. So
yeah, well, and that's the thing. This manifold is an air-to-air with no air to water in it. It's depending on how you option it, it's anywhere from $2,200 to $2,500.
Yeah.
So then you factor in that's a way more complicated piece plus an air to water. It's easily going to be in the 5,000 plus range all by itself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely big ticket on it.
Welding?
Over here, this is where welding happens, as I mentioned. So these guys are going to be making intercoolers. You'll see that there's some already done on the bench. Some are at different stages. Like the ones that are in stages over there that don't have the tanks welded on them yet. Those would be our race intercooler. It's 1,000, 1,100 horsepower capable.
Yeah.
5.7 or 6.1, 6.4 Hemi.
Yeah.
So that's what he's doing over there. But we also fabricate any of the coolant reservoirs, windshield washer tanks, depending on the kit. There's a lot of different things that they do. So it really just depends on the needs. But we make 400 and some different tubes. So they build all the tubes over there. We got, check fixtures on the wall. Actually, it looks like he's building a coolant tank for one of our industrial units. We'll see that here in a little bit. But basically, that's what he's doing. But yeah, welding does a lot of that. We have a separate welding facility over there where the tube bender I mentioned was. Some of these gear cases that you see here, obviously you don't really see that on the automotive side too much. But these billet steel gear cases is one of the models that we would make for a wastewater treatment plant or aircraft ground support. One of the things that we do, we pretty much own the market in the world for aircraft de-icing. So if you're getting de-iced,
we just had that today.
then likely your truck had one of our units, at the bottom of that truck, de-icing the planes. We also do HVAC cards for a couple different military aircraft. We also do, again, wastewater treatment plants. So we'll see a little bit of that later. But for instance, if you're in Key West and you're having to use the bathroom, Innover is involved in that process.
Really?
Yep. So this is one of our two quality labs. In here, we've got a lot of different things. We have dedicated quality people that work in here, our CMM machines. So on the Innover side, everything is tested. Those units are run 24/7, 365, obviously government military. So sometimes you'll actually have to provide a spec for those and documentation to go along with those units. On the Procharger side, usage is a little different. We spot check, but again, they'll randomly hit parts every day off the machines, bring them back, make sure all the KPCs are exactly what they need to be. They'll have the print, the machine will come down, do all the measurements all by itself. So it's a really, really nice piece. But they also do random checks of supplied parts. We don't buy too much. We're pretty much control freaks when it comes to our components. But for the few things that we do buy, we'll pull that stuff off and make sure that they're actually as advertised as well. So some of the shafts that you see up there, they'll go through and measure them and make sure that they're exactly what they say they're supposed to be.
He said shafts. Let's go.
Yep. We'll walk through here. Pretty good. He's recording, so you'll see that we make, through our application guide, you see that we made over 30 models of Superchargers, but they can be had in various different ways, different oil costings, different rotations, different finishes. So literally thousands of combinations that you could possibly get. So that's a lot of what this inventory is stuff that we can actually come and pull and get ready to build new Superchargers. Over there, front and back covers, some of those are already been sent out for polish or black finish. They've already been vibradyned for the satin finish, whatever they are, so you guys can come through and do that. In here is our precision assembly area. The nice part about our precision assembly area is they're really a cross between a machinist and an assembly technician. So all of those parts, they're, as I mentioned before, the birth certificate of that Supercharger, it's going to have this person's name on it.
Yeah.
So they know when they build this, they're going to attach their name to that part, and then we're going to know forever that they're the one who did it. So they're going to pull all those parts. So even though quality might have checked them, the machine says they're good, everything says they're good, they're going to measure up all those bearing bores, tolerances, everything else on their own, just to make sure that, again, if I'm putting my name on it, I want to make sure that it's top notch.
Yeah.
So they go through there and do that, but they also do any new upgrades. So the guys that say they want a P1SC to a D1SC, they're going to do that same thing. So again, they pull that Supercharger apart, go through pretty much all the same process they would have put together a new one to verify that they've got a good part to start with. Any services, so on our big race Superchargers, our Pro Mod type Superchargers that do require service every so often, again, those same guys are doing it. So they keep a good handle on trends, quality trends, what people are asking for, things like that. So it really makes it nice. But again, these guys are super streamlined to how they do it. So whether they're building up a new batch or building up somebody's used unit, they're going to the same love. On the top there, you see some impellers. We call them the impeller trees. So those impellers are actually all off the machine, also balanced. So all they need to do is come pull that, put it with the Supercharger that they're working on. And again, those are also serialized. So it's follows the blower. So we can tell you exactly when that was done.
And then like a P1, P1X. P1X basically a billet impeller on a P1. D1X is a billet impeller on a D1 or no?
We only make billet impellers.
All your impellers are billet.
We make no cast impellers for any model.
Oh, okay.
We actually haven't in quite a while. The Harley blower was the last one we did make a cast impeller for, and actually it's been since 2008.
So what's your difference when I always thought that was my understanding, or was that the way it was when they came out, or was I
Well,
misunderstood on that? I thought that's the way it was.
when
So
we did the
the
old
initial,
P1 and D1 blowers, those were cast impellers. Those are also billet now as well. But kind of the difference between, let's say, a P1SC-1 or a P1X. So
yeah,
the reason why somebody would choose one versus the other is that a P1X is a little more efficient version of a P1SC-1. Most customers, let's say you have a fairly low revving engine RPM and you're not looking for every last bit of horsepower. You want the gain, but it the nth degree isn't what you're looking for. Well, then a P1C in an application that's what it's made
designed for.
is going to be perfectly fine. But let's say you want all it can do, but you also want our tune. A P1X, because of the extra efficiency that you get, not only do you have a more efficient impeller design, but with more efficiency comes a little bit less dry power. So typically on an application, you might see 7, 10, maybe 15 extra horsepower from a P1X just because of the efficiency advantages over the other.
Now the tune, like say you do a 2023 Mustang that's got a carb tune,
Yep.
and it's got a P1 and an option P1X,
Yep.
a P1SC1 or P1X.
Mhm.
Is a tune 100% identical?
100% identical.
It's just the supercharger is more efficient. That's why it makes more a little more power.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly why. And honestly, that's one of the beauty of us designing all the impellers in house and making all the impellers in house, as well as testing and flowing them all in house, is that we can do things like that. In a world where there can be hundreds of different impellers, which we make, being able to have a more efficient impeller, but with the same size pulley, make the same size boost, extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Because you're completely changing the airflow characteristics. Yeah. However, based on that efficiency, getting some extra gains from it, that's an amazing thing. And the fact that you can do a supercharger that makes a little more power, but still be California emissions legal.
Yeah.
Again, that's really a good thing.
And that's becoming a big thing, especially with a lot of tuning locking down, is getting with the EOs and, Ford, and like you're partnering with them on the 2024 and being able to get, a tune for that and put a kit out. So
yeah, no, that's a big deal. And that's the beauty of it is, and, some guys, let's say, for an older application, because there's also, let's say we're talking about a P1SC straight blade, our original P1SC straight blade we still make. So let's say you had a 99 to 03 GM truck, the straight blade P1SC is what it's going to come with. Newer one might get a -1, but let's say I'm going to get the straight blade impeller. Well, you spending the money on the P1X maybe doesn't make sense to you, because you're never really going to be able to see those efficiency gains because your RPM max is only 5,500 or whatever. So some vehicles are going to make more use of it than others. A 2016 Camaro guy is going to see a really nice gain. A Mustang's guy is going to see even more gain.
the higher RPM.
Exactly. So that would be even more reason why you would want it. So again, really just depends on the application and what they do. But that's kind of our job, and that's our job to work with you guys, just to make sure that the customer's getting something that's actually going to do. Does he want to spend? Does he need to spend the extra $250? Maybe he asked for it, but hey,
you don't really need it, don't spend it.
Exactly. That's the idea. We want them happy. We don't want to be like, oh.
Well, I always thought, people, I want an F1A 94. I'm like, how much power you want to make? 800. I'm like,
yeah,
it's way too much.
It's
well, I just want to say I got an F1A, but but you almost, especially on the Coyote, you almost can't only make 800 wheel.
Right.
I mean,
yep. Based on pulley sizes, and again, the really, really good step up ratio with the superchargers, we can't slow some of them down enough to be able to make only X amount of horsepower, X amount of boost on the application. But anyway, the final thing I'll mention about this is you'll see he's getting into some ovens in the back there for a lot of our interference components. Instead of just taking a press and mashing the part together and changing the part, basically is what you're doing. We use hot and cold, heat and dry ice in a lot of cases, to really assemble those precision components to make sure that they're put together in a way that doesn't change the part. So, if we take all the time to verify a shaft tolerance and how straight it is and so on, and a gear spec and so on, and then we just mash together a press, well, all that work was for naught. If we actually, what we found is if we use that technique,
hot or cold
stuff together, it's really going to keep that precision for much longer.
We do a custom knuckle for the S650s with AED, so they can get a 15-inch, and his bearing tolerance, same thing. He has to heat them to get them in, so that they don't have that play in there, so that they're safe for the street and everything like that. So
yeah. So next we're going to go over to our engine dyno room. So it's a little bit messy, but this is a working engine dyno room. We've got two things that happens in here. We have our conventional engine dyno That's a 525 Mercury is a boat motor on there now. It's a lot easier to work on boats in the winter.
Yeah.
When it's on a stand than actually in a boat. So we can do a lot of the development, tuning, all that sort of stuff right on the engine dyno before we ever place it back in the boat. But additionally, we have our engine run-in, our Supercharger run-in stand. So that's got a 2,500 horsepower big block Chevy. It's got our crank drive, our F3R 121 on it.
Yeah, it's big.
That would be a similar combination you would see in like NHRA Top Sportsman. However, that is the unit we use to run in every Supercharger. So as I mentioned before, the quality guys, they'll randomly pull off parts to go down and inspect. Every Supercharger model we build is run in before it ever goes in the box.
Yeah.
So the guys will build it, they'll put oil in it, and they'll bring it, they'll bolt it on the back of that engine, and we'll fire it up and run it in.
Every model or every single
Supercharger we build goes on that and gets run in. So we know for certain that before that Supercharger left, we know exactly that it was perfect the way it should have been.
Yeah.
So they build a P1SC for, let's say the P1X that was built for your Corvette. They built it, they put it on that engine, they put oil in it, ran it in, drained the oil, made sure everything looked good, and then it went in the box.
I never knew that.
Every Supercharger gets tested before it goes. In addition, sometimes you'll get people who maybe aren't familiar with Supercharger sound, or particularly a Procharger sound. We have the standard gears, we have the helical gears that are a little bit quieter. Customers will say, well, I think my blower's noisy. All of those Superchargers are tested for dB. So we know what the noise level was. So if a customer says, hey.
So when you're testing them to make sure they're right, you're also testing the decibel level?
We can do both. Yep.
And you do that on every unit?
We do that on every unit.
Interesting.
So that, when I mentioned before, that birth certificate thing, it's literally a card that has when it was built, who it was built by, specs of the Supercharger, tolerances in the bearing bores. If it's one that we test for dBs, to test dBs, obviously F-Series, we don't bother.
Yeah.
But, some of the blowers that we do, those things are all on that build card. So we know everything about it.
Nice.
So if the guy says, hey, it was loud, are you certain? And if it is, and we bring it back, we put it back on the stand and we test it and we say, oh, it is 10 dBs louder than it was when it left, then clearly there's a problem. Or no, it's exactly what you should have expected. Then will know.
I always, and it's just me, when people order helical gear, I'm like, why? Because I like to hear everything. So I know all your guys' gears. It's funny too, because so you guys, all your gears are loud standard, and then you pay for a quiet gear. The other guys have a quiet gear, and then you pay for a loud gear. And it's like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, it seems to be about 50-50
yeah.
with both brands of the centrifugals that, and I think I wouldn't be surprised. I think we actually have people, I'd probably say it's almost 60% go for the helical these days. I'm guessing 10 years ago, it probably swayed a lot more the other way. I remember back when I had my 99 Cobra back in the day, and my buddy had I had a Vortec, my buddy had a Procharger, and I'm telling you, it was a big unit, an old Fox body, and you could, if it was quiet, you could hear him coming from over, like a block and a half, 2 blocks away. And I'm like, I love it. I want everything with me is loud, loud, loud. I want to hear it all.
But it depends. Some of it depends on the kit.
Yeah.
Some kits tend to be a little more noisy than others because of where the blower's placed, or where it sits in the engine bay, or whatever the case is.
Somebody wants a sleeper.
Exactly. So let's say a guy has a 2020 5.7 Jeep Grand Cherokee that says daily, takes his kids to school in it, wants all the power, got quiet exhaust. Maybe wife doesn't know.
Yeah.
Well, he's going to want it as quiet as possible, right? Like that's somebody that's going to want it. But let's say you take that same Cam Rowdy.
Yeah.
What's he going to want? Same type of vehicle, but different type of customer. But take, for instance, like a Jeep Wrangler guy. That blower sits really high in the engine bay, and there's zero sound deadening into that vehicle.
Yeah.
They've tried to do all they can, but there's zero.
It's going to be loud.
So you're going to hear everything. And a Jeep's already loud.
Yeah.
Some people are like, well, the last thing I want to hear is that all the time. I've already got all this wind noise.
Yeah.
So, it really just depends on the customer.
Yeah,
what the needs are.
Different strokes for different folks. If everybody wants the same thing, you don't either have a quiet or loud gear. So.
Yeah, but anyway, so that's kind of why we do that part of it. But that's what happens in here, just so that everyone knows, and all the different models and everything that goes with it. That's where it happens. A lot of cool stuff happening back here. As I mentioned, we're pretty much control freaks when it comes to our parts. We pretty much make everything in-house. We work, even though tech, customer service, most of the place works, a day shift. We work 2 shifts on the machine shop to try to keep up with production. We have guys that do nothing but saw material all night to get prepped for the next day. And then obviously the guys are doing the thing, putting all of it together.
Let me take a look.
Now, like when these impellers are cut and you got all this excess,
Yep.
can that be melted down and remade, or
We recycle all of that.
you recycle
Yeah,
it all?
recycle all. So this, we got two 5-axis machines. They do it a little bit different. So this is one machine.
You just want to touch it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Well, let's go over here. You'll see the two glass. So this machine right now is set up from M3R 136 impellers.
Okay.
So not quite our biggest model, but one of our tried and true race staples, 2,700 to 3,000 horsepower capable models. So what we do is we'll take basically a roll of aluminum and it turns it into an impeller blank. It looks like this. Okay. After the impeller blanks are made, it's going to go on that machine, and between 30 and 40 minutes later, it's going to come out looking like that. So other than balance, it's ready to go on a supercharger. So it's basically turning this into that.
Yeah, big difference.
Yeah, it's a lot of chips.
Oh yeah.
But that's one thing that does separate us from some of the others is that we make everything, we design everything. So when it comes to different classes of rules and, oh, they've made a rule adjustment, well, sometimes that means that we can go make adjustments to match
Right away.
whatever we need to. Or a new vehicle comes out and we're like, well, you know, what supercharger model is going to work best? Well, it's between this and this. Well, then sometimes we can gear one specifically for that particular application. But, you know, we were talking before about different models. So this would be like a P1SC-1 impeller, curved blade, you know, pretty standard setup. Sitting here would be like a P1SC or, I'm sorry, like an F1C impeller. So a lot of different variations between the different models of what you might be looking at. Obviously similar designs, but the height of the blade, how many blades they have, what the primary blade looks like, secondary blade, all that stuff really.
All your pitches, everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them obviously aren't just normal flat impellers like you see where that primary blade is curved and flat, smooth all the way through. Well, sometimes, you know, they might have to be profiled a little bit different just for a given application. But this is another cool machine that you might be interested in. This machine right here is making all the front covers and back covers. So as I mentioned before, guys will saw up these big plates, and they're basically turning that into one of these.
Does it make multiple at a time?
They do. So what happens is they'll load up this pallet. Half the pallet will get front covers, half the pallet will get back covers. Once they load it all up, it actually rotates into the cutting area. Which is what's going on right now. So those two pallets will rotate, so it'll work on one. This machine has several hundred different tools on it. It's about to do a tool change and start on the next one. So it'll change all the tools and do everything it needs to do. That pallet will rotate. It's doing a tool change right there. And now it's moved on to the next procedure.
Right.
So it's going to rotate. It's going to do everything that it needs to do on that one and rotate to the next one and so on. And then it'll just keep working all day long. So for instance, as I mentioned, half the pallet is doing that and half the pallet's doing this. So that machine is going to do all those tap holes, bearing boards, counterstones, all the O-ring grooves, pretty much everything it needs to do, all on that one machine.
That's nice.
Tucked away in the back corner here is one of our in-ground dynos, okay? We don't use this one a lot, but it's super important. And the reason why is this is where we do a lot of our California emission testing. So there's a lot involved in those particular tests, you know, to make sure that the car is California emissions legal.
What is the biggest thing that they're looking for on a car BO? Like,
so there's a whole bunch of different formulas. There can be CO, NOx, a whole bunch of different things they look for. One of the things that they also do is collect whatever the car emits after it shuts off hot. And they do they basically put the car in a big bag and collect whatever comes out of there and test it. We can do everything here that they can do at lab in California except that final bag test. So with all the analyzers and everything else we do, we can verify that that car, when it goes to the lab in California,
what it should be doing.
Should be doing. So how that process works is, for instance, the C8 EO. We get a letter from California, and California says, time to test this car. They tell us what car we have to buy. We go buy the car in California, we drive it back to Kansas City, we do the install, we do all the testing and verification, everything goes. Once it's set up, then it goes back to California. The nice part is when we buy one of those cars, we pre-test it. So we know exactly what it was like before, so that we know what we're trying to hit when it gets done. So the two things should match. Even after the Supercharger, we basically should be doing the same type of, emitting the same type of stuff that the factory would have been. So anyway, we can do all that testing here before it goes out there and know what it's going to do. So really saves us a lot of time. Those tests obviously are very expensive. They take a long time.
Oh yeah.
But we do all that stuff in-house first before we have to go to the lab and get the final part done. So,
Nice.
Okay, so over here, a bunch of different things happen. Obviously, the R&D for our kits happens over here. We prep for shows. We do all sorts of things. But any of the development work that might happen on an engine outside of a car, that's what happens in here as well. So you'll see a bunch of different things in here. We were talking there earlier about superchargers. So these are a couple of our cutaways that we would take to SEMA or PRI. This is our F4X 140 model, what that supercharger looks like. That would be something that supports 4,000 horsepower on Pro Mod. But then down to like a P1X, this is a P1X helical, so similar blower to what's on your car. That's how the gears look. A lot of questions, a lot of times.
What is it in the gears that makes the sound different?
Okay,
I get people ask me that all the time, and that's something. As long as I've been racing trips 25 years, and I don't know what makes it louder or what makes it quieter.
so the helical is actually a cut on the gear. There's nothing. The helical is actually what you would call for any type of gear that's made with an angle cut.
Okay.
The straight cut gear literally is that. It is straight across.
That's
it.
That's it. That's the only difference.
When you helical cut a gear like this, the mesh is tighter, which means you get less noise from it.
Okay.
Okay.
Tighter tolerances.
Tighter tolerances. That's pretty much all it is. That's why
Any power difference? People ask that all the time. I tell them there's no power difference, but
no power difference, no durability difference one way or the other. It is truly down to noise. So it's what the customer wants and compared to that. But there's several things that happen. So sometimes the customer will get a straight cut gear blower and say, hey, I bought this like 5 years ago, and
times have changed.
I'm older now. I want to make it into a helical. Unfortunately, it can't be made into a helical. That's why it needs to be done up front.
Yeah.
Because not only do we change the gear set, but there's several other things inside the actual cases that we do different with it as well. So, like for instance, another question that people, well, what's the 3 gears for? Well, these are the two main gears. This is an oil slinger.
Okay.
Because it's self-contained, it sits in the bottom of the oil, slings oil up onto the bearings and gears. That's all it does. But for instance, there's an isolator and some other things that we do inside of there that are different from a regular supercharger. So it's not as easy as just taking it from this to that. That's why when we're talking about a sale, we're really pushy about, are you sure which one you want? So,
and the gears on all these are different, all three, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if you do a helical gear, it's going to be a slinger, a pinion gear, and a main gear. On the big race blowers, it's also a wider gear, but it uses a dual slinger just because of the wider gear. So that's really the main difference. And obviously you'll see a difference in the bearing size between the two. This blower at 72,000, this blower at 65,000, big difference in the load.
And then when you get to the big like F1s, they only come one way, correct?
They only come one way. That's right. Yeah, because on an F-Series blower, normally that's on a car that's going to be rowdy anyway.
Right.
Big cam,
sure.
And so on. So the helical will matter less. The other part too is when you get into the F series, the aero stage tends to make a decent amount of noise anyway. So even if you had a little bit quieter gearbox, that could be good, but you're still going to get some aero noise just because it's going to have a sound to move air. Yeah. So it's going to do its thing. But like I said, you see when we were talking earlier about the manifolds, this is a manifold for one of those LT or LS crate motors.
Okay.
So this unit is a very compact, low profile unit. Has all billet construction.
There's a supercharger inside of there?
Nope. There is. This is what the supercharger would still be out front, like it would be on accessory drive, like the LS motor. But instead of using our traditional air-to-air intercooler, which mounts in front of the car, let's say the guy doesn't have room. Square body truck has surprisingly little room in the front between the radiator and the grill. So, and maybe he wants a little more compact setup, a little bit cleaner install. He can buy this along with our traditional side mounted.
So this won't have the big intercooler out front.
Exactly. Yep. So you would have a tube that goes from the throttle body over to the blower. Intercooler's all in here. You'd have.
Does it have a heat exchanger or?
Yep. Yeah. So you would have a heat exchanger.
Similar like a lot of your positive displacement types.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're going to have an intercooler core and then the heat exchanger that's going to be in addition to.
Which is going to be much smaller than the big.
And a water tank or coolant reservoir, whichever you might need. But again, small block Ford. This is what our gear drive setup would look like without the actual blower and everything up against it. This is our LS transplant serpentine accessory drive kit.
Brian Tully, we were dealer for them. Nice.
So the beauty about this kit is that this is the only accessory drive that you can get with or without a supercharger. So for instance, the guy's putting a square body together and he's like, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to do a blower, but I am doing an LS swap and I need an accessory drive. If you were looking at brand A versus Procharger, the reason why you would want to do this is because we can offer you all the same things. It comes with all the brackets, the water pump, pulleys, all the stuff you need. But if you bought brand A, you would have to take all that stuff back off and go to ours anyway to put the supercharger on there.
So this whole accessory drive for this engine, this is, even if you sell these for these, even if they don't have a supercharger, you can buy all this.
Yep.
And if they had a supercharger later,
they just call, get a bracket and a blower, and good to go. Or let's say the guy's already got a supercharger. He can buy that whole kit without the supercharger, and we still provided all the same stuff, all the pulleys, belts, everything he needs. So it's a nice piece.
What all applications do you have that for?
LS, LT, small block Chevy, big block Chevy, and we also released one for small block Ford at SEMA this year.
Okay.
So these are kind of some of the kits like sitting by itself. So I just mentioned the small block Ford. This would be one for like a small block Ford setup right here. So you can see traditional Fox body water pump, timing chain cover, that sort of thing. But then everything else.
Do you make the water pumps, or is like?
We don't make the water pumps. Yeah, we purchase those components just like we do, on some of the kits, like a C6 where we set it with a water pump. We buy a water pump.
Now, let me ask you, just in case people don't like the water pumps, is there any kind of warranty on them? You know what I mean? Like on this.
It's traditionally going to be a normal warranty. That one of those parts would have. However, if let's say we buy a water pump and it's brand whatever. We look at it as like our kit and our components. So even if it only had a 90-day warranty, likely we're still going to support it for the year that
the
warranty
okay.
is. So
nice.
That's not a big deal.
So you stand behind it.
We stand behind the stuff no matter what. But you'll see some different versions. So like you just mentioned, can you get the accessory drive without the blower? Well, that's exactly what that is. That's the accessory drive without the blower. So if somebody, and that would be like small block Chevy. So if somebody says, well, I have a small block Chevy and I don't actually care if I ever put a blower on there, but I kind of like how it looks.
Yeah.
Well, fine. You never have to put a blower on if you don't want. You can get it just like that. So really nice piece. But then
is that in your standard catalog for the superchargers and everything?
Yeah. Okay. Some of the newer models aren't, only because we've been, slamming and jamming on new model, new product stuff. But LS is the LT small block Chevy. I'm sorry, LT and small block Ford are not, but big block small block Chevy and LS are.
Those look. I mean, they look super clean.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really compact, really clean. In addition, we also try to take the guesswork of whether it'll fit on your car or not out of it by providing all those dimensions on our website. So if you go on to Procharger.com and you go under your particular engine application, let's say you've got a small block Chevy and you're like, well, I need to see where it is off crank center line or how deep it sits or how tall it sits. We provide you all those dimensions because again, last thing we want you to do is buy something that's going to fit. Yeah. I'd rather tell you no than be like, I think so. So
do you guys have a Godzilla kit yet?
We do have a Godzilla swap kit.
Swap kit?
Mm-hmm.
I know those are becoming, we're starting to see a lot more guys.
Yep. So
asking about those.
We pretty much as soon as that engine was available, we had one here as a crate. Not only did we build a Godzilla swap kit off of it, obviously we had a F250 kit, F250 kit for those, and we built a gear drive for it. So any way that you want to run one of those, belt or gear drive, we can supply something for those. But you'll see here.
I have a guy that's he builds some custom trucks,
mm-hmm.
and I'll have to get his name and touch base with him because he's been trying to get one manufacturer to build some kits for him, and he's willing to. I think he does. They take 450s and 550s, mm-hmm. and they do some kind of a conversion thing on them. And he does, maybe 20 trucks a year. Yeah. They said the kind of money these guys are spending, almost every single one of them would do a supercharger if there was one available.
Well, and it's particularly on a 450 or 550 with a push rod motor, it's going to need some extra power.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that's would be like a 15 to 17 Mustang kit, kind of how that looks. But the whole idea behind that is to show some of our intercooler options, also our Coyote crank support for that as well. Again, the Coyote crank support definitely isn't for everyone. Not everyone needs it. It's kind of a myth when it comes to that. As long as you install your balancers correctly.
In the 15 years we've been working with Finish Line, they've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of installs, and that's all you guys. And we personally haven't seen anything we've installed ever break in any manufacturer, but people do. And I think I think some guys are lazier with the bolts when they go in, things like that. They do the mallet bolts. They don't take the oil pan off, so you don't see it go in all the way. But some of those guys that are revving them out, I think it does add some extra,
Yep.
a little extra protection.
Well, and as I said, some guys like the insurance part of it. So on F-150s and
maybe the bolt started backing out or something, just something to help hold it together.
What we've seen in a lot of cases is that people installing balancers and not using a balancer installer tool, so it's not put on correctly. Which
Well, that's what I'm saying. I know Brian Finish Line. They drop the oil pan and they look. And make sure every bolt is 100% the way. And even though they have the tools and stuff, and they've done it. Oil pan comes off. They look at it, and it's people are like, "Why are you charging this much labor?" It's like because it's going to be right.
Yes, exactly.
And some people don't understand paying for
you
pay for what you get. So what's an extra 2 hours of labor, $150, $200 when it's done correctly? I'm telling you, 15 years we've never on a Coyote or anything they've done. Had an issue.
Well, going back here, we're basically walking into our R&D area right now. I'll go flip on the lights over in the corner, but basically you'll see a lot of different things going on, various different stages of assembly. As I talked about before, even old kits, we're always trying to even make old kits better. Our 18 to 23 Mustang, we have it back on the dyno. If there's room for more power, we're going to find it. So working through some new stuff with that. So coming soon, you'll see some upgrades even to the 18 to 23 Mustang kits. 15 to 17 F-150, 18 to 20 F-150, and then obviously 21 up F-150 kits. But again, cars, various different stages. Motorcycles, a lot of different things you might see here. As I mentioned, some of the cars are ones we own, so cars that we beat on regularly we'll purchase, or ones that might be longer lead applications than we do our own. But other cars, again, come from all over the place. We have a 23 V6 Camaro. We have your 25 Stingray.
I see it. First time in person.
25 E-Ray. We've got a customer's gas motor, 6.4 liter, 3500 dually there. Another 25 E-Ray, but this one is a coupe converted to a hardtop convertible. Then you'll also see some of our 24 GTs, stick car, dark horse, regular GT automatic car. So a lot of different stuff that you see in here. But yeah, we'll walk over and take a look. I know. So let me get some lights on over here for you so we can see who's there.
First time in person. So when this car, just so you guys know, I bought this car. I found a dealer. I wanted a 3LT because I like a lot of the options, but I didn't want the mag ride. I didn't want real expensive wheels, suspension because we'll do Vikings all the way around, drag pack on this thing. Even though a lot of guys don't do that, that's something that we will be doing, obviously. So I wanted a light option, and I found one. I think it was 2 or 3 hours from here. So I bought it completely online. Never saw the car in person. It got shipped. Walt thought I was going to drive it, so it had a lot of that first 500 miles. They got the car, I think it had 3 or 4 miles on it, so they actually had to drive it around for a couple of weeks to get the 500 miles on the car so that they could get the baseline dyno on the car and then do the install. But we'll come back to this in a couple minutes, but that's kind of the backstory there. So car got here, I think 2.5, maybe 3 months ago. They had to do the break-in and that. So this is my first time actually seeing it in person, and then we're going to drive it back 10 hours. So
yeah, well, it's going to be a good fast 10-hour drive back home. But yeah, now I just wanted to show you a little bit about the
2024.
2024 Mustang kit. In my own opinion, nothing sexier than that Intercooler drill.
Yeah.
Definitely livens up the front end of that car quite a bit. But you'll see this has this is actually one of our shared drive kits, one of our prototype setups for that.
You're doing 2 kits. You're doing a shared drive like previous and the dedicated drive, correct?
We are. Yeah, this is a shared drive kit. Still utilizing both the twin throttle body setups. Again, this has a prototype bracket on it, so the production bracket looks quite a bit different. But this is one of our test cars that we put a bunch of miles on. So that's what this was used for.
Now, right now, especially with no custom tuning really being available, other than standalones, you can always do a standalone. Mm-hmm. But what's the big difference in the 6 rib and 8 rib kit? I know on the previous generation, you get that bigger balancer so that you can run bigger pulleys. Mm-hmm. Up to a certain point. I mean, the shared drive, you can still make good power, but if you want to make big power, obviously the standalone is a little bit nicer. But what's the difference on these with the 6 and the standalone?
It's truly down to customer preference, at least right now, anyway. Whether you're talking about a 24 Mustang or some of the others, in this particular kit, you can get a 325 horsepower gain, shared drive or dedicated drive.
Okay.
So it's really down to customer preference. Some customers will say, well, that's all I'll ever need. I like the fact that it runs along my standard belt accessories. But some customers are, well, I race this car a lot. Or I think I'm going to turn it in the future when I can do more tuning and so on and so forth. So that customer might be the stage 2 or dedicated drive customer, because then they have a belt that only runs the Supercharger.
Now, is that pulley bigger like on the...
It is, yeah.
So then you're running a bigger... So on this kit, what size Supercharger pulley is on the shared drive?
I believe that's a 3.85 pulley that we run on the shared drive kit.
And then on the dedicated drive?
It would be a 4.75.
Oh, wow. So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
So that gives you an idea. I mean, you're a full inch difference in pulley size. So later on, when you want to turn it up, that 8 rib, that's where it's going to be real nice, because I imagine you drop down to a 3.75 pulley on that one. It's going to shit and get.
Yeah. And that's kind of the part of what we talk about, whether, no matter the kit, a lot of customers will say, oh, well, I have a 3-inch pulley and it's slipping. Well, the problem is there's two factors involved when you talk about changing your pulley sizes. That's why you might do a crank pulley and a blower pulley sometimes, because you want to get in a good window. Belt wrap is one thing, but total belt contact is still another.
Yes.
But your tensioner design and everything else, obviously that all goes on the play too. But again, that's the reason why. That doesn't mean that if you do a shared drive and you have a 385 pulley that you're at the end of the rope.
Sure.
But if you think you're going to turn it up and you know that that's what you're going to do and push it harder, well, you've got a whole lot more options if you start with a stage 2, because like you mentioned, you can start with a 475 and go all the way down to a 375.
That's a big pulley.
So the point is that, yeah, that's the reason why we offer those different ones.
Now on the shared drive, it just uses the factory tensioner, or does it move it, or?
Yeah, on the shared drive, we use the factory tensioner.
One tensioner?
One tensioner.
Now on the 8 rib, is there?
We provide the tensioner, a spring auto tensioner to go in the kit.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of how that's set up. We can go over and look at that car on the dyno too, and show you a little more about that, because this is like I said, that particular one. But the one thing I do want to mention is that there are some brands of Supercharger out there that are value Superchargers that have basically taken technology that we've developed and other companies have developed and copied it, basically.
Yeah.
And a lot of customers think that that's the go-to.
Yeah.
What they don't understand is obviously what goes into it. You've seen the place,
Right,
what goes on here. Guaranteed, nobody else's facility looks like that. But I will also say that one of the common misconceptions is, oh, we have cast parts and whatever. Well, you saw all that billet there.
Yeah.
Okay? Even though we put a Vibradyne finish on these units, those are billet brackets. So when you buy that stuff, it's super strong, not cheap cast, not whatever. Versus some of the other stuff. So
I know what you're talking about.
You really get what you pay for when it
well,
comes to
and
that.
What I say about some of those cheap units is, you don't really have a dealer support network. You don't have your tech support network, because I know you can call the number at some of those places with those cheap kits, and
if they have a phone number.
Yeah, you're never getting a hold of anybody on the telephone, where, like you said, you got someone on the phone all the time, and you can call us because we sell so many of your kits. We've got a fairly decent knowledge, especially on the stuff that, late model Mustang, Hemi, Camaro, F-150. That's probably our 4 biggest markets that we're in. But, we're very familiar with those, and we can answer a lot of the questions. I got, some seasoned sales guys that have been with me for a long time, and I got, 25 years of experience myself. So, we take calls we take calls like 8 to 10, 7 days a week, and for the side, it's funny because a lot of people like, oh, Beefcake, he sells parts out of his basement. Got a 6,000 square foot warehouse, and I have 12 employees. We're a pretty decent sized company at this point. And, but the weekends, calls still forward to my cell phone. And, unless I'm extremely busy, I answer the phone. And if I don't answer it, I'm usually sending you a text or calling you back within the hour. And you're not getting that anywhere else. And I think obviously there's value to that. You know what I mean? And, and that's one of the things I think sets us apart. I mean, I don't just sell parts. I'm an enthusiast, man. I've got the 25 Corvette. I've got the Bronco, got the 24 Mustang, just sold the 22 F-150 and my 2015 race car. I got a 23 Challenger Hellcat, just back my old 99 Cobra. I got a 67 Cutlass. We're doing a Gen 3 Coyote swap with the 10-speed and the Supercharger. I love this shit, man. I eat, breathe, and sleep supercharging, and I always say we do more, especially Coyote supercharging anybody in the country. I don't care what anybody tells you. We sell a lot of Coyote superchargers, and I can regurgitate so much useless information about these things. It's sick, but we still make ourselves accessible.
Sure.
You know, I got one guy. These guys all rotate a Saturday, even though they hate it. They help me out. They each rotate one Saturday a month to help out. I handle all the Sundays. And for a company of our size, you're not talking to anybody on the phone at a Sunday. So, and I think that's one of the benefits. Obviously, you can always buy from the manufacturer direct, but that's to pat our own back. I don't think anybody gives better customer service than we do in the business. So,
Well, and I think that's part of what's, that's why our businesses match well together, because honestly, when you talk about enthusiasm, if you look out here on a, obviously it's wintertime here now, but if you look down in the summertime, it's basically like a car show in our parking lot.
yeah.
I mean, from everywhere from, let's say, the guys that work in shipping and receiving that have multiple hot rods on supercharged vehicles to, our controller in the accounting department has a 64.5 Mustang with a supercharger kit on it. Literally top to bottom, somebody here has something that's either a hot rod, a classic, go fast, whatever. So the same type of stuff goes, as I mentioned earlier, I've been a Procharger customer since 96, with all of the different Mustangs, classics, and everything else that I've had now. I mean, I have a Gen 1 Lightning doing a Procharger kit on it, so
I love it. It's on my list. Well, when I bought, I sold a website, a nutrition website back in '99 for like 250 grand. I thought I was rich and went out and bought a '99 Cobra, paid, cash for it. And everybody's like, what's it run at the track? I'm like, I've been to the drag strip once or twice with my brother. And I always say it was the biggest mistake I made was going to the drag strip because I haven't left in 25 years. And, but it's, 10 years after I started racing, built up a little bit of a name, turned it into a business. And first year we did 20,000 in sales, and now, we're pretty big at this point.
Sure.
So it's come full circle. It's, I get my wife a lot about, stuff that she buys. I see on Amazon showing up every day. She's like, well, we just bought this car, and this car. I said, it's business.
Yeah.
It's business.
Yeah.
So you can't count cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't go over well, guys, but
Hey, gotta do what you gotta do.
All right, so what we got here, this is their Dark Horse. So, and this one has this is the 8-rib shared drive or dedicated drive.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So as we talked about here,
Look at that wagon wheel. And how much boost does this produce?
This is about 12 pounds.
So about 12 pounds, and that's with a 4.75. Now, these units, I know this is a different car, you probably haven't pushed that far, but what would say a 3.75 on this unit make?
Well, typically it's about a pound of boost per tenth of an inch. So if it made 12, it'd make about 22.
About 22 pounds. So if your plans are to, once tuning's available and you really want to turn it up, and how far can you go, you think, before you get any belt slip issues? How small a pulley with the dedicated with the bigger balancer?
Well, I can tell you this is kind of off the record, but the orange car that we looked at earlier that was on the dyno, that car we built to celebrate our 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
When we built that car, we wanted to kind of see how far we could push the Coyote and the P1X with all the stock stuff.
Yeah.
That car, stock cats, stock headers, stock catback, literally the way it came off the showroom floor. P1X supercharger turned up with our regular bracket system, made 946 of the wheel with a good fuel system.
Nice.
So you can go pretty far even with a P1X dedicated drive kit.
Nice. What size pulley was that?
That was likely 385. I don't know if it's off.
Oh, okay. So it's still pretty decent size pulley. Nice.
So anyway, that's the beauty of this kit is that when somebody buys, a dedicated drive kit like this, it will work perfectly fine on your bone stock car at 12 pounds.
Yeah.
But yet you want to get crazy and you obviously plans change. Your car gets slower even though it's still fast.
It's crazy to me that all you guys are going like higher boost on these 2024s. Like, even though you're getting more efficient superchargers and doing things, I mean, but they're running good.
Yep.
I mean, the kit looks nice. So this is all black and this is optional. So with you guys now, is the tubing always black on the kits?
Tubing's always going to be
Tubing's always black, but you have an optional black satin or polished, black satin or polished,
correct.
And then intercooler is just black or satin.
Black or raw. Yep.
Black or raw.
Yeah. And in the crank support we looked at earlier, you can get black polished or satin as well.
Okay. And then obviously the strut tower brace that you don't have any intrusion there.
Which is nice because, for some guys, let's say on older Mustangs where they did a Boss 302 intake or they've got a strut tower brace, they like that look. That's definitely one of the beauties of a centrifugal is that you can keep all of your, factory stuff that you've already paid big bucks for in place. I mean, the one of the trucks that we passed when we walked over to this building, Nick's 2017, it's got a Boss 302 intake. Nothing looks cooler than a Boss 302 intake sitting on top of a Coyote in a truck,
Oh yeah. We did I did a centrifugal on my 22 F-150, and we put a Cobra jet on there just for shits and giggles, and you know what I mean, it just didn't really need it, especially knowing we were going to do a supercharger, but it just looks so badass, so but the Boss is still, it's always going to be one of the most iconic looking on these Coyote engines. I think it looks pretty sharp. The only problem is, like the 15 and up cars, you got to do a little bit of cutting on the Mustangs to make them fit. Like we did aftermarket Cervini's hood on our 2015 car, and when I bought the hood, I already knew it had to be cut, so we sent it to the body shop, had it all cut out ahead of time before we painted it, because we knew that's what it was going to take. So
well, that's that. Let's go over and take a look at some more deeper look at your.
We just had to record this before that 3500 dually, and you can hear that blower on the front, man. That sounds pretty awesome. First start. I definitely wanted the louder gear. One of the few upgrades that were on this one was, it's like $1,000 wheel upgrade. I still think they're trash. I don't know what GM's thinking on that. And then there was a performance exhaust. It's like $995. So we'll see how it sounds. We almost always end up with something aftermarket. Somebody will send us something to throw on there that we'll check out. This will have to go. So we did all the carbon fiber upgrades and stuff, and that's a whole billet manifold. That's what we were talking about before.
Yeah, so we can go over that kit a little bit, like we talked about, as you were already discussing. That's that billet manifold, but it's in black. You've got the carbon fiber cover, the carbon fiber trunk panel. The nice part is you can still fit a decent amount in there. As you can see, it follows the same profile as a stock cover would typically do, with just a bump for the air filter. So, still doesn't take up too much of your trunk space. Still fit a set of golf clubs back in there if you've got a soft bag, and as well as your groceries and whatnot. So,
Walt, the plastic cover has a smaller
bump,
right?
Yep.
Yeah. So if that's an issue, it is quite a bit smaller now for the plastic one.
Yeah. You said the top still fits in there, right?
Top still fits.
So it does.
So you'll be able to drop that in there. Obviously, your top's going to rest in those lower pieces here and snap into here, but the top still fits, no problem. So nice day, you want to pop the roof, you'll still be able to fit in there.
Nice.
But as I mentioned, the car picked up, I believe, 196 wheel horsepower. So pretty substantial gain over stock.
We'll call it 200.
Yeah. Yep. So that's what I was mentioning to him earlier. 230 plus crank gain is what we advertise for the Stage 2 kit. So you can definitely see that there are possibility of making quite a bit more than that. I mean, this car making nearly 200 wheel is substantially more than 230 crank. So
yeah. Well,
so I think 475 from the factory. So crank.
What that car just run recently? That C8 turned up.
Yeah, I think it went pretty bottom nines, if I remember right.
Yeah, low nines.
Yeah.
What was that? Was that just a Stage 2, or did he have some other stuff?
Stage 2 with some other items, and cam and some other stuff with it.
Now let me ask you a question. I know there's a lot of the like the eco-friendly, like the Jesse catted headers that supposedly don't set codes or anything like that. Could that be added to this? And what's your?
Well, I can tell you from an official standpoint, the kits and the tuning and everything else is made to work with all factory components. You can pretty much use any catback you want.
Yeah.
For the most part, they make very little difference in regards to the tuning. Are there some other parts that possibly could work with it? Certainly. But the nice part is that, even though our tunes are not something that you can really mess with, we've done a lot of work to try to keep those, to give customers a real nice group of options. Things like if you want V4 mode or not, you can turn it on or turn it off with cruise control. We do clutch protect, really a lot of nice things that we offer that others don't for complete systems. But if you wanted to do custom tuning and turn it up, absolutely, you can still buy one of those kits and do it, and still get all of the the features of a really nice centrifugal, good install, something you don't have to drop the engine to put on, and so on. So
Where is the blower at?
So the Supercharger, it's yeah, with the trunk panel on there, it definitely makes it a little more tricky to see. But as you notice that basically the front of the engine is what we would consider the back now. There's a jack shaft that actually drives the Supercharger, and if you look deeper in there, where the coupler is, the Supercharger is actually tucked into that panel.
You can try to zoom in there, Mike, see if you see it, but I don't know if you'll.
Let me see if we can. I'll show you a little different on this E-Ray here.
Yeah, it was quite an engineering feat to
design this.
and to do it in a manner that you don't have to pull the engine and drop the engine. It's a.
But these, what are these? About a 30-hour install, or is it less than that?
It's less than that.
Between 16 and 18 hours.
16 and 18 on one of these.
Yeah, definitely less than 20. Nowhere near 30. That other guy, so if you got to drop the engine, you're talking
30 hours.
yeah,
Or at least. I'm curious how headers would be on this thing. We like some headers. Yeah. We have some.
So that clutch protector.
Do we start a set there? Oh,
That
the
clutch
LPH?
protect that we have as part of our tune is super important. It's helped clutch reliability big time, and so you just got to be aware of that if you use another tuning approach.
I know Suncoast has some kits for these. We do a ton with those guys at Suncoast. I mean, our 10-speed is, we were making 1,300 wheel. I had 500 passes. I'm just, replacing clutches every year or so. But, they've held up really nice. So, now, but this thing you have to say clutch protection. But as far as running the quarter mile, because me, as soon as first day it's warm, I'm going to be at the track logging this thing.
Good.
Well, I can guarantee you that all of these kits, before we ever released them, went through thorough testing.
Yeah.
And between road course testing and drag strip testing, and hundreds of laps down the drag strip, hundreds of laps on a road course.
Okay.
So they'll. The
Have
nice
at
part
it.
is they'll
Have at it.
throw everything you want. So.
Well, no, I want to hit the gas. I'll have some sticky Mickeys on here, and I just want to hit it and go A to B first time, and zero issues. And
Well, Ken talked briefly about the engineering aspect of this. Obviously, it's a big challenge, for engine car for all of us that are new. So trying to come up with ways to get everything to fit in there. But where the blower placement is, where the intake manifold is, all that sort of stuff. Earlier we were talking about liquid air intercoolers. One of the things that we do, your actual heat exchanger is inside your air inlet pot.
yeah.
So if you peek in there, you'll actually be able to see your heat exchanger sitting
Oh
inside
wow.
there.
Is that on both sides or just one?
Just the one. So
Just
you
the
have
one.
a factory one on the one side, and
Okay.
then we add a new one on that side.
Nice.
Yeah, and this E-Ray,
Here you can see in the low profile design.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so you
for
can see-
convertibles.
you can see things a little bit better on this one. Obviously, this is the low profile intake.
And that's what you use on the E-Rays, the convertibles, and it's optional on these if you wanted
Yeah.
low profile.
Yeah, some guys like the look and feel of that a little bit better. Obviously, on a convertible, it has to be because we've had to.
I want to see it all, man.
But yeah, so you can kind of see a little bit better through the holes, openings there where the Supercharger sits.
Okay. So they sit in the same place on these?
They sit the same place.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then this is the plastic trunk panel, so you can see it's a little bit different shape than the carbon.
Well, the gray one that I'm driving, does it have low profile?
Yeah.
On it? Would that be worth them seeing without the custom finish on?
Oh, that looks pretty good.
On this
That's
one?
pretty sharp.
Or you can, yeah, I know it's sweet, but I don't know if you've seen the.
Yeah, so you've seen the black ones.
Yeah.
The other ones we've done for the low
Okay,
profile
okay.
intakes, yep.
Okay.
So yeah, this is the custom choice on this one. The rule is still and it was special.
Did he send it out or do you send it out?
He sent it out.
Oh, okay.
So even that, but.
Yeah, looks good.
But yeah, so the nice part about those E-Rays, like I mentioned before, is that with, think what you will of battery power and all that sort of stuff, but this car having the battery in the front, gas power in the back, we're talking, 2.0 0 to 60s or so, 2.0 0 to 60s.
Is this all-wheel drive?
Yeah.
The E-Rays?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the basic kit run in the quarter with on one of these?
The E-Ray drag strip testings we haven't done ourselves. Some of our customers have. The numbers are pretty impressive because the car makes nearly 900 horsepower, just right out of the box stock with everything.
What's it make torque?
I'd have to give you the torque numbers. I don't know those off the top of my head, but I can pull up some dyno sheets and take
Because I know the electric motor is supposed to be very torquey. Like,
Yep. Yeah. So the numbers are pretty big, pretty impressive on one of those cars. But
We're going to need a Procharger bracket for that.
yeah. Yep. Yeah, we'll definitely get that within your stock parts there. So.
Well, I like the color.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I was just like, man, I always wanted a Procharged C8. I'm like, I started looking around. I asked you, about kits. You're like, well, we need a 25. I'm like, 3 days later, I bought a car and shipped it here.
Yep. No, we appreciate it. That's
Oh,
it. Actually, it's a lot of trust for customers like yourself or other
Yeah.
I
customers.
like someone who's decisive. Right?
well, I think it was like 3 days later, I bought a car.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, well, I started looking, and it was just a matter of finding the right one. I love the 3LTs, but I just didn't want. I mean, there's some are 15 grand more, and just so much stuff. I'm like, I don't want mag ride because I'm going to be putting Viking long travels on the front, and double adjustables on the rear all the way around, and I'm going to have bigs and littles, and
Well, it makes a big difference in the car in general. Like I mentioned before with the road course testing we did, we've owned a bunch of these different C8s from 2020 all the way to the current model.
yeah,
And when we did road course testing on them, we had at one point we had 2020 Z51 1LT and a 2020 3LT Z51,
yeah.
and that 1LT car was substantially faster around the road course than the
Yeah.
3LT car based on how much extra crap it had.
Yeah.
The raise and lower in the front. And all
This
that
doesn't
stuff.
have the front end lift either. That's I didn't want any electronics in the suspension,
Yeah.
or as minimal as you could get on the car. Just because we're drag racers. I mean, and we got customers on. We got customers who road course, but at heart, I'm a drag racer. I'm always going to be. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
let's hurry up and wait, do it again. But like, it's just what I enjoy doing. So I can't wait to get it to the track.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking care of my car. And how many miles are on her now?
I think just under 1,000.
Oh, really? I told him there'd be at least 6 because they had to put 5 on it. So there's going to be a lot of miles on it. So.
Well, we want to make sure that's part of the whole beta process is not only verifying fitment and tuning, but make sure it drives the way you expect it to. The tuning aspect of it is super important to us. We don't want to just give you a kit and say good luck. If you're the type of customer that wants to put it on yourself, or you really want something that's minimally invasive, let's say, be able to provide a tune that's going to perform well, but still be safe on the car. That's super important to us.
Well, that's a big thing. I mean, we're getting ready to make a 10-hour drive home, and I've never. And you guys know me. I'm a racer. They put me in the car, told me to drive. I could drive. Name that movie. But Brian at Finish Line, he always does all the wrenching and stuff. And I've always trusted him a lot. Like we built that 2017 airbag car. We drove it. That was the turbo car, Hellion car. But we drove that 9 hours straight to Georgia for an NMRA race. We drove it there. Drove it 9 hours home. And it never even been out of the shop, so there's a lot of trust. So same thing, it's, these guys do such a great job. I'm like, I feel confident I'm going to be able to hop in this car. We're going to drive it 10 hours home, and it's just going to be sick and badass, and hopefully the ground dries up. And I did forget my draggy, though, so won't have any draggies for the way home. But we're definitely going to be getting some strip numbers, and it's going to have bigs and littles, suspension, and it's going to be a fun car, I think. So
Yeah, a lot of fun. We appreciate you bringing it. I know it takes a lot of trust to bring your brand new car, have it dropped off on the transporter straight here.
Oh, yeah.
I've never been able to sit in it, but I know you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be badass. So, again, all your Procharger needs, anything you need. If you're doing tuner kits, fuel systems, anything you need, bigs, littles, tires, we got it all at beefcakeracing.com. Hey guys, we are headed home from Procharger. Had a great tour over there. Walt and the guys, super friendly. Treated us a little lunch at Casey Joe's before we headed out. Apparently, Kansas City is known for 2 things: barbecue and referees. Just kidding, Kansas City guys. Again, Cincinnati fan. But it was a great tour, man. The guys, they showed us so much of the stuff that goes on at the facility. It was really, really nice. Had a little lunch, got to talk a little bit more. Now we are on this 10-hour drive home. This will be a great test of the car for the drivability, how it does, the temperatures, everything like that. We haven't been able to get on it so far. I don't know if you can tell, but it's a little damp out. So we haven't really got to give any wide open throttle blasts on the car, but I am definitely super excited to do that. Supercharger sounds really good. It's not, the nice thing is it's not obnoxiously loud when you're driving, considering it's right behind you back there in the back. But I had a definitely hear it a little bit, you know what I mean, back there. But that's just a quarter throttle. Then once it shifts, it quiets back down a little bit, but it sounds really good. You got to remember that supercharger's tucked underneath the back there. We're going to do some wide open throttle blast when we get some dry area. Temperature is about 47 degrees. The road's probably not real sticky, but on the highway, I think we'll be able to hit it a couple times. So we're going to keep you in tune on this drive, let you know how it goes on a 10-hour trip back from Procharger and our new 2025 Beefcake Racing C8. All right, guys, been on the road a little bit over 300 miles. We're just under quarter tank now. We'll probably pull over in a little bit, see what kind of mileage we're getting. Sorry, it's a little dark out here. We're just out here cruising. I got the cruise control set at about 80 mile an hour. I mean, we're 3 hours into the drive, probably about, 5 hours. And it's just been, this car has been so smooth. We've hit it a little bit out here. I mean, that speed gets up there quick. You can even hear that supercharger back there. We got the loud cut gears and everything. It sounds really good when you get on it. But so far, good mileage. We're going to see what kind of an average we get. Because, again, we were at 987 miles when we started out, 981, I think, actually. So we're going to see what kind of mileage we're averaging in this. But I mean, the Procharger tune, man, and I know it's mostly highway right now, but so far so good. Again, we're about 5 hours into the drive, about 300 something miles, and this thing is smooth as can be. Feels pretty quick. With almost 650 wheel on tap. But we'll give you another update probably in the morning. We'll probably stop here in a little bit, get some dinner, fill up on some fuel. All right, guys, we just filled up on the gas tank here. Looks like we got 13.9 gallons. How many miles we got, Mike? 1310? 90. So it's about 320 miles. So I'm going to do the quick math here in just a second. Mike, you got your calculator on you? Michael, my wingman for the trip. So you got 320 divided by 13.9.
23 miles.
So we're averaging this Procharged Corvette 23 miles per gallon roughly. So, and they may have put a little bit of mileage on this, who knows for sure, but so we're getting 23 miles per gallon out of this Procharged C8. Looking a little dirty out here. We're going through a lot of rain, but we're going to go in here and get something to drink, get something to eat. See you guys soon. All right, guys, we are about 1:10 in the morning. We're going to get in about 1:15. We left at about 3:30 Eastern Standard Time from lunch with the guys over at Procharger. And so we basically got a 9.5 hour drive or so home with Procharger again doing this C8 kit. And it's been flawless. I mean, drivability, we haven't had one little hiccup on the way home. It's driven perfectly. Haven't had any issues whatsoever. So super happy with the kit. We did get a couple little hits on it, but it's been wet almost the whole drive. So we're going to obviously get the car out, some dry weather, and get on it a little bit more. See if we get, everybody's loving the 60 to 130 draggies. We're going to try to get some of those for you, and just wear on this a little bit. I mean, we are going to go to the drag strip. We're going to be doing a ton of digs on it. We're going to do some rolls. We'll be doing a little bit of everything. But so far, color me impressed. 9.5 hour drive, been flawless, no issues, just like Procharger told us. Again, they've got these tunes kind of down. The 25, the mapping's a little different, but overall, Walt said the tuning is pretty much the same on these. So 9.5 hour drive, we were at 980 miles roughly, and we're going to finish around 1630. So you're right about 650 mile drive. Flawless performance by this Procharger Intercooler kit. We averaged probably 75 miles an hour almost the entire way. The last fill up had us at 23 miles a gallon. I would be curious to see what this one shows for a little more maybe, but probably similar mileage. I mean, I drove pretty much the same all the way. But that's the end of the trip. 9.5 hours. Nice tour of the Procharger facility. Just pretty awesome day we had, and we're just excited to get out and do more with the car, get a drag pack, some suspension, and go have some fun with this thing this spring and summer. So thanks again. All your needs, beefcakeracing.com for all your performance parts.